The Grimme Ventor 4150 is this week's hidden gem. An incredibly niche piece of equipment because it literally does one job and one job only, but it actually does 2 or 3 jobs in one. What I mean by that is that it is potato technology, so it's only good for potatoes, but it has a topper and a harvester built in, and this makes the entire process just simpler and easier to do. It has all-wheel steering, which means it will turn on a dime, and it is possibly my favorite piece of equipment on Farming Sim, just because of how ludicrously large it actually is. I often liken it to Optimus Prime, but Farming Sim. It folds up and it's incredibly cool to watch it fold and unfold and all that good stuff. Its key bits of information. Firstly, it is very expensive at £599,000, but it will see you forever, especially if you end up having just one field constantly for potatoes. You're going to get your use out of it. Potatoes typically don't sell for a lot per thousand, but you get so much from such a small area that you can often make your money back. And later on, or if you use mods for things like chip factories and stuff, you can then turn those potatoes into quite a lucrative deal. It has 530 brake horse, a variable CVT gearbox, 750 litres of fuel or 40 LDF, which you are going to need. It does guzzle it. 25 kilometers per hour at top speed without harvesting, 10 kilometers per hour when you are harvesting. It weighs a whopping 30 tons and it has a 22.5 meter cubed capacity, or 22,500 liters. It's a beast. There's no denying that it is a lot of machinery for a lot of money. It will make your time harvesting potatoes a lot easier. Not necessarily quicker, but a lot easier. Its topper here is about 3.2 meters wide, and then the harvester is just the same as all the others at about 1.5 meters wide. So basically the idea is that it tops it and then it scoops them up and then it puts them in here, and then you can use the conveyor. You can actually move this conveyor about, so if you've got a taller trailer you can get around that, which is really nice. It makes it a bit easier to sort of work around. And it's very cool to watch as well, because it's all open. You can actually zoom in on the field, which I'll show you later, and see how the potatoes go through the sorting system, which I really, really like. It's a very niche item, right? It's a lot of money, and unless you're planning on committing to potato harvesting, I wouldn't recommend it. It's also, because it's so much to buy, it's also quite a lot to lease. So bear that in mind as well. Now, there are other options in the game. You can use a tractor, a topper, and a harvester as well. And we're going to compare and contrast and see if that's actually a good option or not. So if you're going down the topper, tractor, and harvester route, you're going to still be limited by the topper. That only goes to 3.2 meters, which is exactly the same as what is on the harvester itself. But it's only 10 grand, so you're already a lot cheaper off, right? You're already a lot better off money-wise for the KS75-R. Only weighs 950 kilos, only requires 65 brake horse, and you can actually go a little bit quicker if you are just topping first with 15 kilometers per hour. It also uses the T510 wheel. So you can just buy yourself a topper and go off and get all the tops of the potatoes off rather quickly, rather easily, with a fairly cheap tractor if you wanted to do that. First of the potato harvesters, we have the Grimme Evo 290. This is pretty much as you'd expect from Grimme. It looks essentially like a miniature version of the massive harvester, right? It's just a smaller trailer version of the big beast. It has a smaller capacity. It's only got a 12 meter cubed capacity as opposed to the 22.5 meter cube capacity of the harvester. It weighs a hell of a lot less at 12.5 tons, and it only requires 200 brake horse. Couple that with the topper, and you only need a tractor that's got around 300-ish sort of brake horsepower to be able to run both of them simultaneously. It's got a 1.5 meter width, which again, very similar to the harvester, and it runs at 10 kilometers per hour. So again, exactly the same as the harvester. But it is only £205,000. So it's still going to be quite a lot cheaper just for this. Now, depending on which tractor you get, whether you get it in the discount store, if you get, say, the Fent, which I covered, or the Case, that's going to bump the price up to about the same, right? You're going to be spending roughly about the same. And the biggest issue with going with the topper and the trailer is maneuverability. The trailer is very hard to sort of predict where it's going to be when you're turning at the edge of a field, and that can make it a lot easier to miss bits. Because potatoes are incredibly hard to spot, it does make it a little bit awkward to sometimes see where you've been. So if you've got the harvester, you basically, because it's all one big solid unit, you can see where you're going, you can see where you've been, and it makes the process a lot quicker and a lot smoother. It's not a bad option. It's a little bit cheaper overall, but I would probably still go with the harvester over this. Okay, so we are on a field. This is a job that I have been doing for a while. We are in the harvester, and you can pretty much see how it works. Now, I generally go for a top-down view when I'm doing this just because of how small the topper header actually is. But if we zoom in a bit, like I said in the description of the harvester, you can actually see how it works, which is not something you get to see with like the normal harvesters, right? The normal like wheat, grain and stuff, because it's all enclosed, whereas this is very, very open. Now, one of the good advantages about doing potato harvesting is that it's not affected by rain. You can quite happily harvest in the rain with little to no issues. It doesn't come up with a warning, it doesn't damage your yield at all. Now, the other good thing about this thing is that it is a tank. This means that it takes a lot for it to take damage, which means you're not going to be repairing it very often. And when you do repair it, it's actually not that expensive. Now, I would still suggest that you repair it after each harvest just to keep your yield at maximum. It is literally a beast, though. It is such a fun machine to use, even if doing a field, especially one this size, it takes a while. Again, if you are going to get into potato harvesting, I would suggest doing maybe a smaller field. This is an AI contract I'm doing on this farm, and that's pretty much the only reason why I'm doing it. It eats a lot. Like, you're doing 10 kilometers per hour, you've got a very small sort of ratio or meter length, that's the word I'm looking for, to get around the field, and that's why I'm going around in circles. Now, people will probably give you different arguing theories on which is the best way to do this. I have found that for a field this big, just going around in circles and taking off the edge has been the most efficient way for me personally, because it is such a big piece of machinery. And even though, if I reverse real quick and show you just how much of a turning circle this thing has, it's still, because it's so large, not really great at turning around. And on a map like Calmston, which is so very narrow and has lots of immovable fences, if you like, it doesn't really make it very viable to harvest like you probably normally would. You can disable the all-wheel steering. I've left the controls up on the left-hand side so you can see, which is why the cam position is a little bit different. And you can see in the bottom right how much or how many potatoes you're getting with each passing. Now, it is a little bit disconcerting because it does obviously continue harvesting the potatoes it's already dug up whilst you might not be moving. So you do have to keep a bit of an eye on it. It will automatically turn the harvester off when you are rolling once it's full, but it is worth keeping an eye on all the same. 22,000 litres is quite a lot. That's quite a lot of potatoes. It only takes 2 and a bit goes to fill up my current trailer, the Aperon, I can speak, which we also covered it in another video. Honestly, if you're going to do potatoes, I would highly, highly recommend this piece of machinery. It is a lot of money up front, but it does make, again, the process just seem a whole more seamless sort of idea, right? It's just easier to do. It doesn't take as much effort or as much work to sort of tackle it with a tractor in the middle. You've got your distance of the hitch, and then you've got the topper on the front. It's a ball ache doing it like that. So there you have it, guys. This is this week's hidden gem. It is quite the beast. It is, as I call it, the Optimus Prime of Farm Sim. Let me know what you think in those comments down below, and whether this is a piece of machinery that you would use, or whether you would avoid potatoes like the plague. I know that on Farm Sim it is a very controversial topic. Some people absolutely adore potatoes, others absolutely hate it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Ciao, ciao.